So I hope you all enjoyed that story for our kiddos, because we're going to keep it rolling. We're going to keep talking about it. This is kind of the way my Christian colleagues preach, where they pick a section of the Bible, they read it, and then that's what the sermon is about, is sort of unpacking that. So we're going to do that today. There's a fancy divinity school word for it called exegesis. So we're going to do some exegesis today. Specifically, we're going to do a sacred reading practice called Lectio Divina, which means sacred reading. So we're going to unpack the story in 4 different steps. The literal level, what actually happens in the story. The contextual level, so what's the context when the story was written? What's our current context? What are the themes? The behavioral level, what is the story encouraging us to do in our lives? And then the spiritual, sort of mystical level, the part that connects us, to reminds us that we are connected to the greater wholeness. So, what literally happened in this story? Help me out. Yep, the men in the family died, yep. So Naomi was left with her daughters-in-law. Yeah, she was pretty desperate. She decided to go home, back to Bethlehem. Yep. Or one of the daughters-in-law came with. Now, oh, go ahead.
Power and loss of community.
Yeah.
He said immigration. He said
Wait, you're getting ahead of me a little bit. That's context. That's themes. We're just saying what literally happened, just retelling the story. But save that for a minute later. So the daughters, Naomi and Ruth, go back to Israel, and they're still pretty poor. They're still struggling. And Ruth meets this guy, Boaz. Yeah, creative. And kind of lucky. She meets this guy who's like, yeah, for sure. This wheat was just going to lay on the ground anyway. Take it. Yep. And then she and Boaz got to know each other better, got to appreciate each other's good qualities. And then they got married and they had a baby. Happy ending. She proposed. That's exactly right. That's pretty notable for the Bible. There's not a lot of that going on. So that's basically our story. That's what literally happened. The next level is context and themes. So one of the contexts, definitely immigration. We've got folks they call her Ruth the Moabite, I don't know. So they call her basically Ruth the immigrant. That's who she is in the story. And that's what that story has come to mean to Jewish people is, look, converts can be part of our community. It's a lot about Jewish converts, but really, also immigration. Some other contexts, intermarriage, religious marriages of multiple religions. Some context from our current time. It's Hispanic Heritage Month as of today, and it goes from September 15th to October 15th. We don't even get a full month, not really. It's like half of one month and half of another month. It's fine. Your half Mexican minister is not bitter about it. Also, some current context, like I mentioned during our joys and sorrows, are that we've got a lot of immigrant rhetoric going on in our political sphere these days. Not all of it is good, but we're dealing with a lot of climate displacement. People moving from places that they would prefer to stay in because of the effects of climate change, because of political instability, because of globalization. So we've just got a lot of people moving around. In ways, actually, they always have moved around. It's just in our weird sort of static nation-state mindset where like you stay where you're born, which has never really been true. And we have the continued plight of the Palestinians in that same region that our story takes place today. So those are some of the recent sort of context that we're in. Some other themes include rebuilding after loss and grief. I mean, that beginning of that story where Naomi loses her husband and 2 of her sons it's awful. And the fact that these 2 women stick by each other, the women's relationships in this story are really notable. This story passes the Bechdel test, which, if you don't know, is a test for movies. If there are 2 women in the movie who speak to each other about something other than a man, that's it. And this may be one of the only stories in the Bible that passes it. So, yay! It's also got themes of chosen family, right? I mean, they are mother and daughter-in-law, but they really choose to stay committed to each other. Another notable thing in this story is that God is not that involved. In the text itself, God is mentioned a few times, but God doesn't actually, it doesn't say, and God did this, and God made this happen. It's really the people involved who are following their values that they get from their religious commitment to God. And so it's really about the people and about the women. The women are the driving force. The women are making the choices. They're going to Bethlehem. They're picking their man. It's great. So that's our second level, context. The third level is behavior. What is this story kind of encouraging us to do? I'm wondering if it sparked anything in you all, that it made you like, oh, something I should do in my life or not do. Sharing leftovers.
Creating your own destiny.
Creating your own destiny. Ooh, I like that. Yeah, taking things in your own hands. Helping widows. Yeah, yeah.
You mentioned that she was our grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
but not genetically grandmother, but she still accepted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sort of adopted family. Yeah, yeah. Family beyond blood. I love that. Yeah. This story talks a lot about, it mentions the harvest a lot. We're in that season. And so it's got this abundance. It's like, oh yeah, there's plenty of wheat to go around. Take what you need. A lot of generosity, that kind of thing. It encourages us to share and help people. And that you reap what you sow, right? So if you sow kindness, if you act with generosity, you'll kind of get that back, right? Both Boaz and Ruth did good things, not in order to get them back, but it did eventually kind of, good deeds bred more good deeds, bred more kindness and joy in their lives. I think from our song, All Lifted Hearts, this definitely has golden rule vibes as well, right? Of like, treat others how you want to be treated. I love that. One of the most important words in the text of this story is chesed, which is Hebrew for steadfast kindness. I really like that phrase. I chose this story a few weeks ago, but I was reflecting about it this week during Rummage while I was planning worship and you all were really hustling for Rummage. And for those, I always assume there may be someone new in the room, so in case you missed it or in case you're new, Rummage is a big sale that we do where we take in lots of donated items and then we sell them to people very cheap and then we donate what's left over. We do it twice a year, it's incredible. It's also our biggest fundraiser of the year, which is very exciting. And so while I was reflecting on this story this week, I couldn't help but see some parallels, right? Sharing our leftovers, helping each other out, making sure that those in need have access to what they need. I also noticed some intergenerational loyalty. You may know, or you may not, that Betsy Bauer, she usually is not in the room because she's volunteering as a safety leader. Betsy used to run Rummage for, I hear, 25 years, and then handed it down to a team. And so that next generation now carrying forth that legacy of good work, that's really incredible, and it just really reminds me, the story reminded me of that. Also, women's relationships. The leaders of this Rummage cycle all happen to be either women or people who were assigned female at birth. So women taking charge, leading, I love it, making it happen. Also, the community is supporting each other and those in need. Although I will note, I think Rummage may be a little too hard on people physically. You may have noted our poor Rummage leaders limping up here with various injuries. So, just noting that we may want to be a little more helpful if our leaders or any involved are injured or disabled. How can we make that work a little better next time? This story, I also really like the act of gleaning. Gleaning actually comes up quite a bit in the Bible, of taking that leftover, sharing that leftover. And that aspect, like Jamie mentioned in our announcements, it's very green, right? Rather than the disposability culture we talked about last week, it's really encouraging us to use what we have, reuse what we have, share those treasures with the next people who might get use out of them. I saw a lot of steadfast kindness this week. Each volunteer has shown it, and Rummage as a whole puts it on great display. There's no obvious divine participation in something like Rummage. You know, God's not coming up and being like, and thus Rummage occurred. That's not really our theology, although it may be yours. But in living our values so concretely, the spirit of life and love thrives in us. And it was just so obvious. I was in awe. This week, folks found affordable treasures and cheap necessities who might otherwise have had to go without. We saw kiddos coming in. We saw folks who, might resell some of the stuff. Hey, go for it. Somebody's going to get it. It's going to stay out of the landfill. But I was just very inspired by you all this past week. I think this rummage sale thing that you do, it's almost like a spiritual practice. It's a lot of hustle and bustle. It's a lot of sweat equity. But it's also very spiritual, I think. At the end of the book of Ruth, it doesn't just say they got married and had a baby, the end. It actually ends with a genealogy, tracing Boaz's ancestors to folks who were in previous Torah stories, and then tracing the descendants of Boaz and Ruth's son, Obed. Obed ends up having a grandson named David. You may have heard of him. One of the most important figures of the Torah. David as in, and Goliath, right? David, the bisexual poet, musician, king of Israel. A friend of mine from divinity school, side note, actually has written a musical called Beloved King about David and Jonathan, which if you read that part of the Bible, gay. I just don't know how you can read it otherwise. So, Beloved King, look it up, pin it for later. But what we see here is that by ending the story with this genealogy, we see that all these acts of kindness have ripple effects, have a butterfly effect into the future. Those small acts of steadfast kindness can have epic effects. This congregation, with every box you lifted, every dish you cooked, every item you priced and sold, made small positive effects in a lot of people's lives this week. When we are steadfast to those in grief or in poverty, when we reach out to the immigrant or the stranger, when we seek abundance in a culture of scarcity, each of those small kindnesses may have butterfly effects we will never see. And you never know what the results may be, but they are connected to you through your steadfast kindness. May it be so.